Our country is becoming more diverse. 90% of all the population growth in the last 15 years came from racial minority and immigrants. And in the next 40 years, 80% of all the US population growth will come from first-generation immigrants or descendants of immigrants. And by 2042, there will be more people of color than whites. And as a person of color living in Maine, I've been rooting for diversity. But when we are segregated, it is not the answer. As I look around, in particular this election, we are divided by race, class, and gender. Not since the Stanley Cup hockey finals was on at the same time as in season final of Grey's Anatomy have we had a more divided audience in country. This is the racial dot map of Houston. Virginia University used the 2010 census to show where every American lives. A blue dot represents where a white person lives, a green dot for black, an orange dot for Hispanic, and a red dot for Asian. And Houston is being touted as the city of the future. It's one of the fastest growing cities in America. It is the fourth largest city in the US, and it is the most racially and ethnically diverse city in the nation. And demographically, Houston is what the US could look like in 2042. And it is not what I expected. You can clearly see that Houston is racially divided. 50% is white and 50% is not white. And even in multicultural cities, we're divided by neighborhoods, but more troubling, we are divided by race, class, and ideology. This is the second GOP congressional district in Houston. And guess where they landed? In mostly white neighborhoods. Are you surprised? Whites make up 70% of the most racially and ethnically diverse city in America. 70%. This is the 18th congressional district in Houston. It's 50% white and 50% non-white, and is represented by a black congresswoman named Sheila Jackson Lee. And according to GovTrack.com, which tracks the voting records of every congressman and every congresswoman, she is ranked as one of the progressive and most liberal in the nation. Whereas Congressman Ted Poe, who represents the 2nd congressional district in Houston, is ranked as one of the most conservative in the nation. One district is mostly white, and another district is multicultural. And politically, they are diametrically opposed from one another. And Houston is not an anomaly. This is taking place city after city, county after county, and state after state. The reality is we are more divided by race, class, and ideology more than ever. Now, race and segregation are difficult and complex to unravel. And we have heard from the left, and we have heard from the right, whether it is Black Lives Matter or Blue Lives Matter. What we don't do is ask why we matter to each other. When we matter to each other, we begin to work together to compromise and find a solution. We, however, physically live apart from one another. We worship in separate buildings. We send our kids to segregated schools. We shop in segregated neighborhoods. And the only real interaction we have with one another is at morning and evening rush hour traffic, or when we walk through corporate doors and white CEOs and upper management go to work in one set of elevators, and maintenance and support staff in another. We are becoming fearful of one another, and we use stereotypes to reiterate our superiority and our fears. As an Asian American, I am apparently a terrible driver. And I am good at math. And I am yellow. Who knew that I am a pastel color? Apparently, in springtime, I look fabulous. Winter and fall, not so much. Is this all that I am? Of course not. We're more than just a stereotype. I've been called every racial epithet, from the young, the old, male, female, from people who live in trailer parks and people who live in mansions. I've been spit at, I've been in fights, I've received death threats by phone and by a car full of teenagers who tried to run me over. I face insidious institutional racism every day from overt racists and white liberals. I've also experienced racism from other Asians who said I wasn't Asian enough, or from blacks who said I couldn't be a civil rights leader because I wasn't black. Now, what I learned from racism is it comes from power and insecurity. Power is a long-term struggle. And insecurity is individual. We all have it. When we empathize with one another, we begin to see each other as human beings and less as threats. And I am all for change. And it's easy to point out the obvious injustice. And firebombing the establishment is both fun and exhilarating. But what you do thereafter is more relevant. In 1776, the US revolted and declared its independence from England. But it took 11 years for this nation to have continuous, painstaking talks to write and approve a constitution that governs large and small states with equanimity. It takes one person to blow up a bridge, but it takes a large number of people of various backgrounds and skills, from engineers to draftsmen to carpenters and ditch diggers, to work together to build a bridge that works for an entire community. Long-term solutions are complicated. In 2000, I wrote an article in Maine's largest newspaper as an employee of the City of Portland and the Portland Police Department. I called out the Portland City Manager, the Portland Police Chief, and Portland City Councilors for leaving the MLK breakfasts early. I did not make Employee of the Month that year. But it is now traditional for these dignitaries to stay for the entire event, and many now sit at the dais. And the Portland NAACP is now seen as an event where political leaders want to attend because of its good programming and local leader support. Now, after I wrote the article, I still had to go to work. And I still had to go and have meetings with my then boss, former Portland Police Chief Mike Chitwood. But he realized and recognized to better protect the city, he needed to win the respect of the multicultural community, to partner and collaborate to prevent and solve crimes. And it also meant that his police officers would be safer working with this community. It was a win-win. And he became an ally. He also set the stage for other Portland police chiefs, and today my friend and former colleague, Mike Chosik, the Portland police chief, is also an ally. And that lesson stuck with me. Since I wrote that article, I've been looking for ways to make the argument that people of color matter to Maine, and that Maine needs people of color. Maine is the oldest state in the nation, and we are facing a workforce shortage. And according to numerous economic reports, if Maine does not replace its large numbers of retiring workers, our way of life may not be sustainable. And I've been championing hiring more immigrants and refugees and people of color for almost 20 years. And this message, thank you. And this message is now resonating because both sides can see that they need each other. And I've also helped to create coalitions that have helped over 200 immigrants in Portland find jobs. Now, integration is long and difficult, but it is critical to our success. Integration to me means finding the value and worth in each other to build a lasting relationship. Separate but diverse helps no one. When we are segregated, we soon forget why we need each other and why we matter to each other. Now, I recognize that not everyone has the opportunity or the ability to develop or affect policy. But what are some simple things that you can do to form new relationships or at the very least, change our perceptions of each other? You can shop in an ethnic store, worship in a different denomination or with people of different faiths and races. Meet and greet people who are different from you and who have different political and social views. Invite people who are different from you to your home for dinner. And food is a simple and easy way to connect with someone. And for me, personally, as a person of color, living in the whitest state in the nation, I am hoping to get some free meals out of this. Be willing to talk to anyone who's different from you. And no matter what they say, if it is negative, it comes from fear and insecurity. It isn't about you. Let them know that we are not to be feared. And let them know that when they are ready to talk, we are ready to listen. Thank you.